Everything in life is story. Story is how we share ideas, politics, vision, fantasies, experiences, even our hopes and dreams. The Gibson Gazette is a podcast show devoted to story, those we consume, those we tell ourselves, and those told to us. Hello, hello, my peoples. How you doing? It's your girl AMC and Marie Collymore here, and I'm with your here. I'm here with your here. I'm here with our boy, LMG. What's up, Mister Mike?
Yes, I'm L. Michael Gibson, aka LMG, the co-host of the Gibson Gazette podcast, and I am glad that we finally got our shit together so that we could actually do this recording.
For real. Holy shit, Pola, guys. Let me tell you. Woo! The past few weeks have been crazy. Crazy, sexy, cool. Hell no, I wish it was crazy, sexy, cool. It's been nuts. It's just been nuts. But as LMG said, we're here. We're ready to get it popping. We're going to cover some shit. Let's do this.
Yes, indeed. So, AMC, what stories have you been consuming over the last 2 weeks that you want our audience to know about, but we're not going to go too deep into about today?
I'm so excited for this. And I'm gonna have to talk about it again at some point, but guys, I'm obsessed with Succession and Bel Air, but that's another convo for another time because I really want to sit down with LMG and dissect and talk about it. But I know I'm late about Succession, but just hear me out. So I started this show when I was sick. Mm, maybe last when was it? I don't know. Anyways, last year sometime I was really sick and I said, okay, let me watch Succession because everybody's talking about it. So I started it and fell asleep and was like, no, this is boring the shit out of me. So I don't know if it was just the timing or whatever, but I decided, okay, after it's been raking up all
Hello?
of these awards for a bit, and from the counting that I did, they raked in a good like 42 awards, like various awards across the boards. And it's been nuts. So I said, let me start it again. And I started it again when I was sick a couple of weeks ago. And now I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. So if you guys don't know, it's about the dysfunctional, as hell, and I mean dysfunctional Roy family, who are owners of Waystar Roy Co., which is a global media conglomerate, media and entertainment. And everyone is fighting for their peace and control of the company amid uncertainty about the health of the father's stuff going on, Mr. Logan Roy himself. So, Jeremy Strong, who plays Kendall, do you watch the show, LMG?
Of course, I watched the show.
Because I know. I was
Yes,
like,
I'm completely caught up. So yes,
okay,
you are a
good.
little late. Yes, I was watching it in real time as it was happening. So
I tried though. This is the thing. I tried, and off like from jump, it just wasn't hooking me in. But I don't know what did it this time. I sat up. I maybe because I forced myself to, and I was like, "Listen, you need to watch it." And then after the first episode, I was okay. What did I miss the first time around? And I just kept on going and going. One morning, I watched it until maybe 3 o'clock in the morning,
mm,
and yeah, I got caught. I went down a spiraling abyss of Succession, and it was fantastic. Yeah, so Jeremy Strong, who plays Kendall, he deserves every bit of his Emmy and Golden Globe wins. Like oh my god, insane. Brian Cox is Brian Cox. I mean, he's dope. The one thing I was a little disappointed of is that I don't see enough representation of our faces in there. I mean, it's media and entertainment. You know, we are in media and entertainment. We in there. The black faces. I'm not seeing a lot of that. I do see a few, sprinkled here and there. There's Parker Sawyers, who plays Alessandro, who's magically disappeared because he was one of the lawyers in season one. He's gone. Um, I'm really tired of seeing Juliana Canfield, who plays Jess Jordan. She's Kendall's executive assistant, and I'm tired of seeing her run after him all the time. And I need a character with substance. And I did read along the way that my girl Sana Lathan does come through. And I'm not gonna lie, I was watching it right before I came to record, and it happened to be I'm on episode 3 of season 3, and Sana was in the first and second. So I'm hoping she doesn't kind of, wither away into nothingness as well. I'm hoping to see more. I mean, you can go ahead and drop a little something and let me know she's going to be there for a while.
I mean, Sanaa is not in there deep. Like she's there and she goes, she comes back. I mean, I wasn't mad. I actually don't want black people in this world.
I
This
do.
world is awful. These people are awful. All of
They're
these are
horrible.
this is a collection of some of the worst human beings on the planet.
Thank you.
And so I'm okay with black people not necessarily being part of this world in a real way. I mean, and on some level, yes, they're a media conglomerate family, but they're also part of the like billionaires leaning into trillionaire rich. And
Mm-hmm.
while there are a few of us in that those tax brackets, it's far and few in between. It's a pretty white world. So I mean, I'm not, if they were kind of on the ground in the midst of the media, running labels, but running
Yeah,
television
yeah.
shows, but they're not. They're above that. They're like running. They have cruise lines and and
They're on a
and
whole other
right,
level.
yeah, it's a whole nother level. It's more like Rupert Murdoch's family, and I don't know that Rupert
Right.
Murdoch's family is hobnobbing with the black elite. Um, so yeah, I mean,
Good
I
point.
hear you what you're saying, and there's a lot of places I want black to see black faces, but these are some. I mean, like anybody and everybody in this world that they've shown so far is with very few redeeming qualities, like very,
Hmm.
very limited redeeming qualities. And I want to give a special shout out. Like you name checked all of the guys, but to me, Sarah Snook as Savan with the black
Yes.
woman's body is
Yes.
my with the black the banging black woman's body is my girl.
Listen.
Look, I'm loving her and her outfits,
Siobhan
and
gave
her
me
shade.
Shiv. I love that too. I was like, yes, Shiv. Because she comes with it
I
all
mean,
the
and
time.
you're on the season where she really comes into her powers as well. So,
Ooh.
like,
All
I've already
right.
seen this season, and I don't know where they could possibly go from here. Because wait till you get to the finale for this season. I'm not going to ruin it for you.
Oh shit.
But everything comes to a head. Everything.
Well, they did sign on for another for season 4, so I'm quite. I really, really want to see what's gonna come to fruition. I mean, there's just so much going on already, and you're saying that it's gonna come to head. Come to head? Like what the?
Yeah, nah, they risk it all, and you'll see
Okay.
whether or not risking it all as a family makes or breaks them. I'm just gonna leave it at
Mm.
that for you.
All right. I look forward to it.
So apparently HBO is going to owe us a check after this episode because I'm going to talk about 3 HBO Max shows that I'm either watching or just finished. So my
Mm,
trio of shows that I'm checking out is Julia, Minx, and Starstruck. Each is a
mm,
woman-centered story boasting a multicultural cast. Produced by Daniel Goldfarb of Miss Maisel fame, Julia is about the beginnings of Julia Child's
mm-hmm.
first show on public television um, in Boston, The French Chef. So it's led by Sarah what can I say her name right?
I'm sure.
Lancashire. Lancashire? Lancashire. Those who are Brit fans of the show Happy Valley will recognize her as that. But I recently got through watching Happy Valley season 2,
Mhm.
and I'd seen all of the episodes of Julia, and I did not make the connection. I mean, and
Oh,
I've seen like Happy Valley season 2 like in the last 2 months. So I mean, the performance she's pulling off is incredible. I mean, and she's following Meryl Streep, right, in playing Julia Childs. So
right. Yeah.
that's those are. I mean, plus Julia Childs, I mean, herself is such a very individual, very specific kind of a character and a woman.
Yes. Yes.
And but yeah, she's killing it. And for those who don't already know this, Frasier is one of my favorite shows of all times, and we're having a Frasier reunion of this show on this show of David Hyde Pierce and BB Newworth.
Yes.
Um, so the other found on the show is the black actress Brittany Bradford's performance as the fictitious Alice Newman. Um, she's based on, in part, on a real life French chef associate producer Ruth Lockwood,
Mm-hmm.
who was white, a white woman, but was also a pioneering producer. In this version of Child's History, it's Alice, the black girl, who takes time to recognize what Julia Childs has that's special, and again goes to bat for a show that the other man just can't see because it's the 1950s and they're not able to really get into the fact that Julia Childs could be a thing. Which, of course, hindsight being 2020, all of this looks very ridiculous and sexist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then, she not only gets the show on air, but she also gets it financed in ways that haven't yet been imagined, which is, revolutionary. Producers Kaiser and Goldfarb say that their research showed that there were young black employees at WGBH, the public broadcasting network out of Boston in the early 60s.
Boston. Yeah.
And the racism that Alice faced, they say, was part of the world that they tried to display. You know, for our purposes, they in quote unquote, for our purposes in 2022, talking about changes in the workplace and in society, we felt embodying these ideas and the character was beneficial. They were careful to give her a meaningful storyline. She's not just there for the white protagonist. She'll eventually later on make a relationship connection with a black guy or a guy that her mom tries to set her up with. Um, but racism is a part of her life in this show, and sexism is a part of her life in this show, but it's not her only show part of the story. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I love this show. I love the very modern but yet not modern marriage of Julia and Paul Childs. I find the show compelling and sweet, and I definitely
Nice.
recommend Julia. The
Okay.
other show I'm going to be much more brief about, Minx, is about the start of a fictitious feminist porn magazine launched in 1972 by a feminist editor played by Ophelia Lovibond of Elementary fame, for those who are CBS Elementary fans, who is also something of a sexual prude. A little bit of oxymoron there.
You're right.
And the magazine is being published by this progressive porn king played by Jake Johnson. People who like Fox's New Girl will remember Jake Johnson as the lead guy on there.
Yep.
It's messy fun and occasionally poignant with lots of large prosthetic appendages flopping about.
Ain't nothing
lots and
wrong with
lots,
that.
lots of dick shots. It also boasts Nigerian actress Adara Victor from Rizzoli and Owls as Tina, the behind-the-scenes glue to publisher Doug Renetti's whole porn enterprise. Like, she really is the heart of the show, and she kind of keeps all of the trains running on time.
Mm.
So then we have two shows now where the black woman is depicted as both put upon, but also like the real just rising star of the whole thing, right? And the person who makes magic happen, which is not quite unlike the real world. My last
Mm.
show on that I'm checking out is Starstruck. It's kind of for those who remember Julia Roberts' Nob Hill movie. It's kind of a homage, also set in the UK, with an everyday mess of a woman played by Rose Matafeo. Herself is a white presenting biracial Samoan who finds herself repeatedly entangled with a major movie star who also happens to be Southeast Asian, played by Nikesh Patel. For those who are also UK fans will remember him from Indian Summers a few years back. Matafeo is creator and co-writer of Starstruck. I've been in love with Nikesh Patel's impossibly perfect face since Indian Summers. And Matafeo is a floppy haired goof that you can't help but love. Both seasons are available on HBO Max and are short and sweet. They're like run about 25 to 26 minutes each.
Oh, nice.
You can get through the whole thing, their whole love affair, where they come together, break up, come together, break up, in an afternoon. Like, make it an afternoon binge and get your life. So those are
Nice.
the things I'm checking out right now. And of course, I had already just told you right before, I'm watching the Horace Children of Elite season 5 on Netflix. They just launched their new season, where all of the kids are sexually fluid and very promiscuous and do drugs and find themselves in lots of trouble, including murder. So yeah,
Yeah.
I stand by the Spanish telenovela Elite on Netflix.
Yeah. Love it.
All right, so we're changing it up, switching it on to loving it. But before we go to loving it, please make sure that you like, share, subscribe to the Gibson Gazette. Make sure you tell your friends about us, follow us, and make sure you're following us on all the different social media, not just the podcast platform that you're listening to this on. All right, for
Absolutely.
loving it, we normally tell stories that are positive, that we absolutely love and recommend people check out. So, what are you loving these days, AMC?
I am gonna go back a little, but it's still relevant. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Questlove because Summer of Soul it won an Oscar, which is fantastic. But he also just won a Grammy on the weekend, which is well last weekend by the time this comes out to play. But yeah, he won a Grammy, and that's huge. This has been such a special documentary for Quest and for Harlem and music history. So the context of it all was the Harlem Cultural Festival, which is the brainchild of Tony Lawrence. And the festival is also known as Black Woodstock. Excuse me. It was a free series of six Sunday afternoon concerts that took place in 1969 at Mount Morris Park, in Harlem, as I said. So when you have a show with artists like Gladys Knight, Stevie Wonder, BB King, and Nina Simone, and it receives little media coverage and it has 300,000 attendees, like when you think about the artists and the Parthenon of artists that were actually there, and yes, it's the 60s, but they were already like solidified as, in king and queens in entertainment at that time, where of course now they're legends, right, in their own right. uh in black music individually too. So when you have all of this together, that really doesn't make any sense that there was no media coverage or little to media coverage. So where Woodstock, of course, took off in the media, this, the Black Woodstock, was actually sure to be forgotten, which it was until now. So, just to sum it up, the documentary was a celebration and a look into Black music and culture and the political perspective of Blackness and Black pride at the time. So, it really was a labor of love for Quest. I know that if you followed him on Instagram or Twitter, he spoke about this film with a passion all the time. Anytime he had a minute to do it, he did it. I mean, yeah, of course, you got to market your business, but he was really, really passionate about it. So I'm really happy to see that his team and himself, like he was recognized for such an important, bringing such an important project to light. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I think that everybody should either Google Summer of Soul. Sorry, y'all. Google it, see what you can find on it. There's so many articles. There are so many articles on it. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of things that went down behind the scenes. And of course, watch the doc. Support and watch the doc. Talk about it. Keep on pushing it. Keep on watching it. Watch it over again if you need to. It's actually on Disney Plus, so everybody can get into it right now if you want to. What about you? What did you have? I know you watched it already. LMG. What did you think?
Yeah, I watched it, and not only did I watch it, I bought the CD. You can buy the CD for it, or physical media for it. You know, a lot of music is not available on CD anymore, but they did release this one. One of my favorite scenes on it is Mahalia Jackson
Mm,
singing with Mavis Staples. They do a duet together, which is just like super powerful with a mass choir behind them, and the whole thing is just super black and super killing it.
mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting because I'm more familiar with Wattstax, which was a documentary that came out in 1973 that commemorated the seventh anniversary of the 1965 riots
Mm,
and included the lineup from Stax Records. So
mm.
which kind of has a similar look and feel. These documentaries are a few years apart, about 4 years apart in terms of their depictions and recordings.
Yeah.
But Watch Dogs got tons of shine. Like, the documentary came out. It was very well publicized. So I was surprised that this, seeing the success. Usually Hollywood is pretty good if one thing is successful that looks like a thing, then they'll quickly
Oh,
churn out something else that looks
yeah.
just like it, right?
Hmm.
And this should have been immediately released following Watch Dogs, given the success of that documentary and the way it has endured. So I was a little surprised, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised, right? I understand that
Yeah.
this footage, you know, uh, was quote unquote lost, but and
Mm,
then and there's like mixed stories about that, right? Like
yeah.
I heard
Yeah.
it really wasn't lost. Was sitting there in the archives and just needed someone to put it out. So I'm
Right.
glad that Questlove got his Oscar to go along with his Emmy. I'm also there was the one of the few Southeast Asians to ever get an Emmy, was also one of the producers on this film, and it was lots of kerfuffle because Chris Rock called him white, and he wasn't white; he's Southeast Asian. There's like Questlove and the two white producers, and the guy took offense, obviously, because he is one of the few Southeast Asians to actually get an Oscar.
Right.
But yeah, people definitely should check out Summer of Soul. And if you're still into physical media, you should absolutely buy the CD.
I need to get that. I had no idea about that, so I'll be looking into that myself.
Yeah, I don't be trusting these. I'm old school. I'm a little conspiracy theory oriented. I don't be trusting these streaming services to
I
have
know.
obscure black memorabilia.
Oh, please.
It's not obscure right now, but in 10 years, people are like, "What? Who? What
Not even
album?"
10. Like you're gonna receive that email where it says Summer of Soul is going to be like off of the platform in 10 days. So,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
and
So
then what?
I try whenever possible to get physical media. No, that was a great pick. Mine, I hope, is equally good. So I love the season finale of Bel Air, but I don't want to give anything away for those who haven't seen it yet. Especially since
We have
we
it in Canada, so no.
yeah haven't seen it. Oh, okay, wow. Let's just say everyone acted their faces off, and Marlon Wayans has officially locked himself in for villain roles between this and his portrayal of part-time pimp and part-time Aretha Franklin's husband, Ted White, in Respect. But
Mm,
I digress.
mm.
That's gonna be the teaser for you.
Damn,
That's gonna be
really?
the teaser for you. Yes, yes.
You
It's a
know what?
very
It,
powerful episode. I mean, when I
it,
say powerful, like you'll be on your edge of your seat. You're gonna cry. You're gonna throw stuff at the TV. It's
no
amazing.
way.
It's an amazing finale.
When I saw you scream on Facebook and say Marlon Wayans, I was like, "What? Marlon what? Marlon what?" So I started searching and searching and searching. I'm like, "What is he talking about Marlon for?" And then I noticed people started talking about it. I was like, "No, oh
Well, see, and I didn't want to give away what he plays, right? Like I just said that Marlon Wayans, and people were like, I just said his name at the screen.
man."
Folks
Yeah,
was
I know,
inboxing
I
me.
know.
Folks were inboxing me. Oh, you got a picture of Marlon Wayans' dick? Let me see Marlon Wayans' dick. What I was like, no, I don't have. Is there a sex tape with Marlon? I was like, I don't know. Y'all are a freaky mess. That's hot mess people who follow
Oh
me on social
God.
media. No, that's not what's going on. It's not a dick pic. It's not a sex tape.
Oh
You freaky
my
people.
God. Yeah.
So
Mm,
I was
mm,
like, it's
mm.
just that, and I would tell them in the inbox, but I never did share on the thread itself because I do think people should get that surprise on their own. In any case, I digressed. So my loving it this week goes to the last days of Ptolemy Gray, a six-episode
Mhm.
American drama miniseries based on a novel of the same name by Walter Mosley that premiered on Apple Plus TV on March 11th and just concluded its run this week. Um, this too was a passion project. Speaking of passion projects by Black folk, for
Mhm.
Lifetime Achievement Oscar winner, we have to put
Yes,
that. We got to
sir.
put that whole name in there. Lifetime
Yes.
Achievement Oscar winner Samuel L.
Well
Jackson,
deserved.
well deserved and overdue. Who
Yeah.
played the title character, Ptolemy Gray. Gray is a lonely 93-year-old man with dementia who is temporarily able to remember his past through medical experimentation and
Mhm.
uses the time to investigate the death of his caregiver nephew, Reggie, played by the superb 6'6" Omar Benson Miller, last seen in HBO's Ballers. I'm always very impressed about Omar Ben Similar's career. He's
Mhm.
such an unlikely movie star. He's super tall. He's a very thick man,
Yes.
big pie face, and he is always getting cast. Like if you look at his IMDb, brother has not been out of work since he started doing work in the industry.
He is
Um,
working. Mhm.
the show also is co-led by Dominique Fishback, who helped carry, and I'm going to say it, helped carry the film Judas and the Black Messiah to greatness as the young wife of slain civil rights leader Fred Hampton. Fishback here plays Robin, a 17-year-old girl whose circumstances has her replace Reggie as Ptolemy's caregiver, saving both of their lives. Much like season 2 of Castle Rock, this show attempts to give us the inside view on what it's like to have past and present collide in the mind of someone with advanced dementia. It also explains the present day history of medical experimentation on black bodies, as Ptolemy agrees to be part of an experiment that will advance the science for others down the road. Because Ptolemy's unique physiology allows him to tolerate this treatment.
Mhm.
But after the treatment is done, it will only bring him fully back to his full faculties for 4 to 6 weeks. So there's immediately a time clock on this show. And meaning you kind of get that from the title, right? The last days of Ptolemy,
Right.
right? But after the 6 weeks, it's going to drop him off on an accelerated mental cliff. Appropriately, he refers to his medical doctor, researcher, who of course is a white guy, as the devil throughout the show.
Uh,
He's very clear that he's volunteering himself to participate in a very long tradition of medical experimentation on black bodies to advance science. Um, but the show is not about that. The show is part murder mystery as we explore who killed Reggie, his
mhm.
nephew, a
Mhm.
missive about well meaning but ultimately destructive family members, and both toxic and healing romantic love for both Ptolemy and Robin. I was reluctant to take the ride at first, thinking it was going to be too dark and heavy,
Same.
but instead, I found this work rich, layered, funny, contemplative, as much as it is occasionally dark. And I loved it immensely and highly recommend it. That's my love in it.
Okay.
The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray on Apple Plus.
Every time I kept on seeing, actually, I sat down and I watched a trailer before it came out because I see Sam. I want to know what he's up to. And when I watched the trailer, I was afraid the same thing. I was really afraid of it being dark and heavy. And since having my son, I cry at McDonald's commercials. So I really did not want to be sitting in pools of tears and emptying tissue boxes like mad. So I said, you know what? It's about dementia and just the aesthetic of his character. I was like, oh boy, this looks like it's going to be really rough. So I said, okay, I might just I put it in my queue, but I haven't gone near it. So if you're saying that it's a mixture of emotions and
Oh,
that
yeah.
I won't be a sappy mess, then maybe I might take a look.
Yeah, I mean, it is a mixture of emotions. Of course, anytime you have a character who's lived almost 100 years and his past is colliding with his present, you're going to get, memories of lynchings. You're going to get memories of black, trauma.
Yeah.
But you're also going to get, very romantic love. I mean, one of the things that I kind of joke about all the time, and I'm not really joking, is it seemed to me, yes, the relationships that folks were having in the 60s and 70s and 80s even were pretty toxic.
Oh, shit.
I mean, like they were really toxic, but we get it from our love songs, right? From those eras, right? I can't live without you. I'ma die. Baby, I can't breathe.
True.
I'm snotting. We gonna cry together. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but there is something kind of go for broke about that kind of love
Hmm.
that I don't see or hear about today. And when I do, it's like, oh, there was a murder suicide. It's not like, oh, we just were passionately into each other in a way that made me want to sing about it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and
Go big or go
so,
wrong.
there was, the relationship that Ptolemy has with his wife, Cynthia, is the kind of love that you would have heard 70s R&B songs be made about, but
Hmm.
also in today's lens look at it as like, It's not really a healthy relationship. It's not really good for you, girl. But
Yeah, yeah.
at the same time, man, to have somebody love you that much and get you that much, and it be that passionate and powerful. I mean, like, but even my stories of my family, like that stuff was toxic, but it was also
Ride or
powerful,
die.
and people didn't, and even when they broke up, they didn't get divorced.
Right, right.
My grandparents, even after my grandmother and grandfather split,
Mhm.
um, they had boyfriends and girlfriends and everything after that, but they never got divorced. And when he got lung cancer, she came back, took care of him until he died, and buried him.
Yeah.
And it's just a
Mhm.
different kind of. I mean, I would never want to have my grandparents' marriage, but she was disaster. She was not cute. Those of you who have followed me on Facebook have heard me talk stories about those relationships. But again, that kind of powerful, passionate love, that go for broke love. I miss that in black community.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anyway, so what is your it's complicated. And for those
Oh
who don't know,
boy.
our It's Complicated stories are those we have mixed feelings about. We love certain aspects of it, but we recognize how it can be perceived as problematic, an incomplete solution to a problem it's addressing, or just has elements that keep us from all the way endorsing and loving it. What do you
Mm,
got for
mm,
me,
mm.
AMC?
So, I have to talk about this, and you guys are gonna hear this ad nauseum for a minute. So, are we still talking about the slap heard around the world? Yes.
Ah!
And I know you're gonna scream. I know you're gonna do it. I said Mike is gonna die,
I cannot
but
do another minute of this story. Why?
listen,
Why, AMC?
because
Why?
so many people asked me, "What do you think? What do you think?" Blah, 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 blah. I said, "You know what? When it initially happened, you know what I did? I went straight to Twitter to just to scroll and see what people are saying. That's what I did. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna say what I had to say on the podcast and done. This initially was supposed to happen when it happened, right? This is when we were supposed to do our podcast, and then shit happened. So here we are. I am going to talk about this once, and that's it. That's it. Please don't come for me. Don't look for me. This is it.
Girl, you better hope they don't turn off this podcast because they sick of hearing about this story too.
Let me tell you something. I'm about to put my disclaimer up because, yeah, listen, truthfully, this shit is not going to end until we hear from Will and Jada if they have their say about it and really do their Red Table Talk Edition thing. If they're going to decide to do that, everybody's going to actually tune in once again to hear all of this shit again. So I'm just going to have my say now. If they do the Red Table Talk, I'm not talking about it. I'm telling y'all now, don't look for me. Again, don't look for me. All right. So, woo, here we go. Um, y'all know what happened. I'm not going through all of this. That's it. So there are really a lot of layers to this thing. I'm just gonna go through a few points and that's it. So I think that there are multiple responses to the situation. What was Will wrong? Yeah. Time and place. Okay. You don't smack down people. Just, you don't. You don't do that. In any setting, really, where it really, emotions can definitely flare up, as everybody knows. But I see so many people talk and judge like they would be level headed and actually walk up there in that moment so calmly and tell him, please don't talk about my wife. Come on. Come on now. I think that you truly don't know what you would do or how things would transpire until you yourself are in the moment. We all would love to think that we have great judgment and you know great reflexes in terms of situations like that, but sometimes things can go left real quickly. But yes, I feel that that wasn't the time and place. Is he at fault? Did Chris write the joke? I've read so many different stories. I don't know. I read via Entertainment Weekly that Chris went and he ad libbed it. Yet I read on another hand that, of course, what I know as I've written scripts for different events previously. And as I just said, different events, big events, large events, they always usually have script writers. So, all of those quirky little jokes are coming from people who wrote the script for people to read off of the teleprompter. So you really don't know which side it's coming from. Are we ever going to find out? I don't know. But if Chris did ad lib it, that's his ass. I know that Chris has been like digging at Will and Jada for a minute. I think that Will and Jada have been the butt of everyone's jokes. Yeah, everybody's gonna say it's their fault, etc., etc. I get it, but they've been the butt of everyone's jokes. I think Will snapped, and that could have been the end of his patience. The straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing. That was the end. He was done. On the other hand of the spectrum, as a black woman watching like a black man stand up for his lady, when it happened and he walked up onto stage and slapped Chris, I screamed. I was in my living room on the sofa. I screamed. And that was because in my eyes, I was like, oh my God, did he just like get up and do that? And did he really like try and defend Jada? Like, but Jada can defend herself. There were so many things that were going through my mind. And
Now, what exactly
excuse me,
did you scream when you flew out of this chair?
I screamed, holy shit, Will. And the thing is that because this is so out of context for him, mind you, again, we don't know Will. We know what has been presented to us, but we don't know Will. I haven't read his book yet. I do want to read his book, but from what I've been learning, his mom was abused, I believe, by his dad.
Yeah, no, she was a victim of multiple abuse, and Will
Right,
suffered from deep insecurity about the
right.
fact that he wasn't able to defend his mom, and has lived with the fact that he felt he was a coward as a child for not physically
Mhm.
defending his mom, and which
I
is
read
just
that.
way too much of a burden to put on his childhood self, right?
So imagine like living with that burden and seeing your wife who is suffering from alopecia actually have to sit there and take, a hit like that, especially since she's been talking about it ad nauseum. Like I don't understand how that has gone over someone's head. And to me, kind of when people were like, "Oh, Chris didn't mean it," or whatnot, it's funny because Chris was like, "Oh, I love you, Jada." I felt like he was kind of buttering her up for what was to come. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's so many angles to look at it by, and Chris doesn't have a stellar rap sheet himself. Um, boy, there's just so many things to go through. But if you guys Google good hair, if you guys Google the situation with who was it? I think it was Jerry Seinfeld and what was the CK Lewis? Yeah,
Louis C.K.
Louis CK. There you go.
Oh yeah, the he allowing the white guys in the room to use the word nigger
Nigger.
and exhaustion. Yeah, it
That
was
was
that was a cringeworthy moment. It was Chris has had several cringeworthy moments when it comes to black folks, and I'm a fan
yes,
of
he
his
has.
comedy, but
Me too.
he has
But
this he allows white folks to get away with a lot.
mhm, mhm. And I also read a thread on Twitter by Crystal Fleming. A friend of mine had posted it, and it broke down so many like multiple levels of what was happening from a whole other perspective. She went into how black women are humiliated and always at the brunt end of people's jokes, and how we're never stood up for in front of a lens. How black women have been sexualized and how it's normalized in society, and more. It's like it's a read. It really is a read. So, as of this podcast airing, Will has issued an apology. He's resigned from the academy and he has now been banned for 10 years by the academy. So, quote unquote, the academy determined that for a period of 10 years from April 8th, 2022, Mr. Smith shall not be permitted to attend any academy events or programs in person or virtually, including but not limited to the academy awards. So that's where that stands. What are your thoughts, LMG, so we can just squash this shit and be on our way?
I'm gonna quote what I said on Facebook and about it, and most of this is targeted towards people who I felt were being incredibly hypocritical. And I even put my own parents on
Hmm.
blast and talked about the fact like when parents abuse or hit their children, quote unquote, discipline their children
Yes.
for being disrespectful with their words, we shouldn't be surprised that those same children grow up to be hit peers who are disrespectful with their words, right? Like this is
Mm-hmm.
what we
Mm-hmm.
teach each other. This is a cultural norm in our community, you know. And what I said was we come from violence. The language we use is violence.
Mm-hmm.
The jokes we tell are often violent. Our cultural sayings we use to connect with one another are violent or hold the threat of violence as an immediate consequence. The films we watch, especially in America, are incredibly violent. Our music is violent. Our games and neighborhood stories are violent. Think about the stories we tell each other and which stories get privileged over others in our neighborhood. Often it's including some form of violence. You
Mm-hmm.
know, our cartoons for adults
Yes.
and for children are
Yes.
violent. Our national histories are violent. Many of our grandparents, if not our parents, were or are violent. So I'm not going to grandstand or soapbox a single act of violence in a decades long experience of one person. I find it's ridiculous. It's the
Mm-hmm.
hypocrisy of it all for me. The shock isn't that it happened. The shock is that it's the first time it happened. And even then, it was only because security was better in the day of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, because then the
Mm-hmm.
victim would have been an indigenous woman who took the Oscar for Marlon Brando
That's
when
right.
he won, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had
Mm-hmm.
to physically restrain John Wayne from going
From
to beat up
slapping her. Yeah.
a
Yeah.
woman,
Right. Right.
right? So let's address our national culture of violence if we want to see less of it. Because a lot of folks was clutching the pearls and, oh, I would never, let's not elevate ourselves over the weak moment of one person who has otherwise been a model of restraint. Like we ain't been hearing don't start none, won't be none. Nuck if you buck. On
Right.
sight. And
Right.
the granddaddy of them all, manifest destiny. If you want to talk about true violent words, our whole lives. Will Smith has a reported net worth of $350 million. He's won the Oscar. He's won Grammys. He has a Golden Globe. He's been in 42 films, most of them global hits. He's led a
Mm-hmm.
smash hit TV series. He's raised three fine adult children. He's been married for
Mm-hmm.
more than 25 years and has had multi platinum, platinum, and gold albums. If he retired tomorrow, he already did the damn thing. If
Okay.
they wouldn't let him do anything else, he's already done all the things.
So
There's
true.
nothing really they can do to him that he can't recover from should he choose to. But I don't need black folks to hop on this particular takedown bandwagon. It's giving white fragility. Like,
Oh.
it's giving, blindness about our history and our present in relationship with violence. Like one slap, 3 weeks of conversation, think
Mm-hmm.
pieces,
Mm-hmm.
memes. Child, I'm exhausted. We haven't given this much to the war in the Ukraine. Like, you'd have thought COVID stopped happening and folks stopped dying. Like I am so exhausted, and I find it telling that we eagerly want to take down this black man for one act of violence.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, so yeah, I'm. Do I condone what he did? Nah, but I also know everybody got their breaking point,
Yep.
and none of us are our best or our worst moment. None of
Agreed.
us.
Agreed.
So
A
that's all
hundred.
I got on the subject.
Woo! That's all we need. Y'all hear me now? Don't come for me. I am not there. Moving on. What you got, LMG?
So my It's Complicated is going to be a bit of a surprise for people because I've been very complimentary about this particular experience. So this week is Gerard, make sure I'm saying his name, Gerard Carmichael's HBO Max special, Nathaniel.
Hmm.
In it, we get to see the maker of the gone much too soon, The Carmichael Show. For those of you who don't know, it featured Loretta Devine, Lil Rel, David Allen Greer, and Tiffany Haddish,
Some names there.
and ran for 3 seasons from 2015 to 2017. It was critically acclaimed for all 3 seasons and only ended because Carmichael decided he wanted to pursue other projects. Now, he followed that up with 2 more HBO stand up specials and 3 very personal documentaries, including Home Videos and Sermon on the Mount. In both documentaries, he explores his relationship with his religious family and their secrets, including the impact of Carmichael's father's serial infidelity on his North Carolina family, and a first meet between inside and outside family siblings. They both those documentaries are searing and thoughtful outings, and both received critical acclaim. Carmichael has since been an executive producer for the equally short-lived show Rel and a director for the indie film On the Count of Three, which premiered at Sundance and sits at 85% on Rotten Tomatoes in terms of critics' reviews. So, he's batting 1,000 so far. I don't think Carmichael has had anything that's flopped.
Mm-hmm.
On his latest foray, this time for HBO Max, again, y'all should cut us a check, HBO. We really bigging y'all up on this show today.
I'm saying.
Carmichael returns to his stand-up roots with director Bo Burnham, who directed his second special. Spike Lee directed his very first one for HBO in 2014. And returns to discussion of family secrets, revealing his own at the age of 35 years old that Carmichael is a gay man. This, as he's pointed out in subsequent outings on Seth Meyers and SNL, gets him applause in New York, but plays out much differently once he leaves that seemingly more progressive oasis. I don't know about how progressive it is. Those who have been paying attention to the news know that an arsonist just burned down a gay club this week in New York City, injuring 3 people. For Carmichael and others like myself who came out at age 16 to an equally Christian conservative family in Chicago, Nathaniel feels like a very landmark moment. And while I found Nathaniel reminds me of the best of Lenny Bruce and Richard Pryor in the storytelling, it's very raw, unflinching, sometimes deeply uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly honest. The laughs in it for a comedy special are few, they are present, and each is kind of like a welcome release from the pressure of truthful silences. There's, elevated by Carmichael's mastery of the pregnant pause, right? Like he does a lot of just moments of complete silence while he's processing in real time what he's saying. And Burnham's really, uncomfortably close lensing of his subject in the Dark and Blue Night nightclub in New York is, part of, the art of it. He does a really good job of getting close-ups on Carmichael's face, when he's deeply uncomfortable himself and awkward and thinking through an issue. It's all been hailed a success already and will likely pick up a lot of Emmys, and they are artistically deserved. But the whole enterprise raises questions. What do artists owe their families when their stories intersect with those whose lives are decidedly not in the spotlight? One can argue Carmichael doesn't owe his father's infidelity or his mother's religion driven homophobia his protection, and that he has the right to tell his story as he experienced it. But as this isn't a past that has been reconciled or redeemed or even really worked out, but a present that is still being hashed out right this minute to this day, like it's still being worked out in real time, is any grace of time owed that process outside of the public eye? Or is no one here owed the grace of time while each party involved is trying to figure it out? I don't have the answer to that. Even one of the patrons in the Blue Note, asked Carmichael, it took you a while to come to reckonings with your sexuality yourself. Don't you think you owe your family at least as much time? And he wrestled with that on the show for a minute. But I do know that we wouldn't be celebrating Carmichael outing someone before they were ready to be outed.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we are celebrating the outing of parents who are still reckoning with their sons' only just announced sexuality and their own faults and frailties as parents whose examples were ones of secrecy and facades as family values, now being put on display for all of us to judge and
Mm-hmm.
find wanting. Is that fair? I don't know. But as much as I love Nathaniel and the messy nature of Carmichael's public reckoning in real time,
Uh-huh.
I can't help but also be concerned about the collateral damage of doing it also publicly and what that's going to leave in his family's wake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thoughts?
Agreed. Totally agreed. I think it's a matter of it's an individual preference in a general perspective, but in this perspective, I totally agree with you. I think that it would be fair. It's not a matter of him actually owing them anything. I think it's just playing on an even keel. And if you really do want to heal, I think it's there has to be balance, and the other parties involved have to be allowed the time to marinate and really think things through and come out the other side and have a discussion with you on that topic. I don't think that's something that should be happening in real time because that could get very messy, and then of course you're going to have the open-ended opinions of everybody. Like the family's going to be bombarded by that. um that's going to make their thought process and their healing process even harder. So I don't know, man. I think in this case that that's something that should have been worked out, and then you make your create your project, your vision, whatever it is that you have and you want to work with, created from that. Because there's always the space to tell your story and then discuss the healing process. You know what I mean?
I do. And I don't
I
necessarily even need them to have healed, but I do think maybe it to have come to some resolve, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, maybe that's the right
like
word.
memoirists go through this struggle ethically, right? This is something that comes up in creative nonfiction classes and memoir classes for creative writers. Like, how much are you putting someone else's business out there while you're telling your own story
You're right.
because you're privy to their story and it's part of the context of yours, and how much do you comfortably share, and do you need to get permission to do that, or
Well,
do
that's
you
where
at
the
least,
lawsuits roll in, right?
you
You
know
have to be mindful.
I mean, and even the law doesn't say you can't. I mean, if it happened, I mean, but then again, memory's tricky. And one of the things that I tell people, there was an incident between my grandparents, and I think I've talked about this before, where a violent incident occurred between them. And for my senior thesis for undergraduate, I interviewed like 5 or 6 different family members who were present for the incident or at
Hmm.
least experienced some aspect of the incident. And none of them told the same story.
Mm.
None of them. Even my grandmother who experienced it did not tell me the same story, right? Like, and so hindsight is strange. Memory is not reliable.
Right.
There's a lot of ways in which this plays out. Now, I mean, in Carmichael's case, we know these are all facts, right? Like his father was a cheater. His father had outside children. His mother was not aware. Like apparently everybody in the town, but his mother was not aware.
My
was aware
God.
that her husband was doing all of this, and she just was the only one who was oblivious. And like even his sons knew and kept it to themselves to protect her. And then ultimately, I guess it got to be too much for them, and they finally told her.
Okay.
And some of this got, again, hashed out in Sermon on the Mount and on home videos. Similarly, like Carmichael did talk about the fact that he had had same sex experiences. I think kind of testing the waters to see, how people do. Like it's kind of a cliche. It's like what I joked was that he did an old school, that I had some bisexual experiences, before coming full out as gay,
Hmm.
just to see how his mom would take that on camera, right? Like
Right.
that was also on camera.
Jeez.
So it wasn't entirely shocking to me, but even when he was on Seth Meyers, after his SNL triumph, he was saying like, I was just on the phone with her. She's gonna watch this right now, and Seth was asking him questions that he couldn't really answer because they were all experiencing it right now. Like she'd seen
Yeah, no.
Nathaniel,
Mm-mm.
and she had seen SNL, and so she knows these are things that are being talked about, and her
Yeah.
family's being talked about, and her not being aware of her husband's infidelity was being talked about. It's just
Yeah, that's rough. That I'm sorry, that's rough. So I mean, okay, maybe I used the incorrect terminology, maybe the wrong wording in terms of healing, but I really think like in just this setting for everything to be processed, that it would have been fair and balanced in order for everybody to go to their boxing corners, ruminate on things, and then come back. That's all I'm saying. I don't think I don't want to learn in real time. And having people coming up to me in the parking lot while I'm doing my groceries talking about Miss Anne Marie, I heard about this. I am not the one. When I tell y'all you're gonna have to adopt Xander Collymore, okay? Because that will not be happening on my watch. So I that nah no. I don't think that's the lick at all. And I wonder where, like, is this, where was Carmichael, what did he want to gain from this? Like, how it was, is he, this was just his project he was putting out and that's it, and he was taking
no,
his
it's
family for the ride, or
no,
like,
it's clear that he wants. I mean, what any? I mean, I don't. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what he has said publicly, but also kind of what artists who do this, including myself, because I've written some very very transparent essays about my family's experiences with things. What you want is to be able to let people know that they're not alone, right?
right?
Like, so in
Hmm.
the theme of his special is he and his family are trapped by their secrets, and that they
Hmm.
put on a polite facade and they're polite with each other, and that doesn't allow that lack of transparency, that lack of candor doesn't allow for healing, doesn't allow for growth, doesn't it keeps people trapped. It kept him trapped in a closet till he was 35. It kept his
Hmm.
mother trapped in, believing that everything in her marriage and life was okay when it was clearly evident to many people that it wasn't. Kept his father trapped in the lie that he was this good husband and good man, while
Right.
he's literally, sleeping with
He
the
ain't shit.
town. Right. So I think that, he's talked repeatedly about how freeing all of this has been and how liberating all of this has been.
Hmm.
And I get that for him. I mean, and as a black gay man, I get
Yes.
that. And I could hear, and then there's messiness about this, but, I think that there's a knee jerk respectability that we all have kind of as black people around some of this stuff. Like we want to hide things that are not resolved, hide things that are messy, that are not neat.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he's saying, and in his act and in this show, he's giving an example of it doesn't have to be. I mean, I can hear that being a counter argument. Like it can you can talk about it while it's still being messy, while it's still being worked through, to show people how what that looks like too. We actually don't have a lot of examples of what that looks like.
True.
So but I'm as somebody who, I don't know this man's mom, but I've seen the documentaries of her, I've heard his depiction of her,
Hmm.
and I just I would imagine that this has got to be incredibly difficult
Yeah.
for somebody who's as private as she is to
Hmm.
suddenly find her entire family's life on national and international display. Now her husband seems to be, because he's, they've asked him in interviews and such, the dad seems to be kind of like, do you, son, I support you in this, and and I'm sure some of that is driven out of guilt.
I was just about to say that. I was waiting for
you
you to
know,
finish so that I
right,
could say exactly that, because I'm like, you ain't shit. You're gonna sit there and take your licks. That's what you're gonna do.
right.
So
So
you're
I
not
think
gonna tell your son anything.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I know that there are gay men and LGBTQ folks who feel like the mom should take her licks for being homophobic.
Okay.
But again, I worry for this. I don't, I don't even know these people. I worry for this family, like that they may not come out of this okay. And
Yeah.
I think he'll come out of this okay. He got millions of dollars. He can go to therapy. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know that everybody else is going to come out of this okay. We don't even know what the siblings and cousins. Have big big black families.
Oh yeah, I'm in the middle of that. Of one of a big black family.
Yeah, so
But
I don't know. But anyway, that's my it's complicated. And as you can tell, listeners, it's complicated for us.
yeah, listen, I'm gonna wrap up my scene on that. I think it comes down to the question of at what cost. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Whew,
that's
child.
a that's a heavy one, boy.
That was a heavy one. All right.
Hmm.
Before we get to that, just know be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share on whatever platform you're listening to or watching us on. Also, comment or review where possible so that we can climb the charts of the various platform algorithms this show is on. Now, back on with the Gibson Gazette. All right, just know it's just no time. These are stories we hated or have harsh critiques for. This is where we go in. AMC, what you got?
I'm going to have to refrain from cussing a lot. So I'm sorry if I start to ramble into, expletives galore. So, former NFL player Channing Crowder has decided to open up a can of shut your mouth. Okay, so let's just dive in here. So recently on the Pivot podcast, former Miami Dolphins linebacker, who is Mr. Channing Crowder himself, stated that Sierra, our lovely 1-2 step Sierra, is only with Russell Wilson, Mr. Flashy, NFL, got them rings, come talk to me, because, and let me quote it directly for y'all. He said, "You don't leave Future and get with Russell Wilson. It's a type. Everybody has a type. And I love him on the field, but he's fucking square." So this is what he said, calling Wilson a goofball. Now, this is coming from someone who said Cleveland is the anus of America, and also reportedly stated that he couldn't find London on a map. That came from Wikipedia. I'm not gonna lie, I lifted it off. I don't know if it's true. I looked it up. I couldn't find anything. But if that really came out of his mouth that he couldn't find London on a map and that he did not believe that there were any black people in London, yeah, no. Okay. So, firstly, he stated that she doesn't leave Future to get with Russell Wilson. Let's go down this list, shall we? Like, why would I want to be with Future just because he has a Grammy? I have looked into some of his, characteristics. And so apparently he is like infidelity 10.0, this dude. He's just
Allegedly.
allegedly. Oh,
Don't get us sued. Allegedly.
that just came out of my mouth the same time it came out of yours. So thank you for having my back. So again, and I will say it again, allegedly. Yeah, infidelity is his name. So and allegedly again, I know he has many children. I just don't know how many, but he has different children with, I think, individually with different women. I think it's about maybe five or six or seven. I don't know.
I think the number
Allegedly
is supposed to be seven. I think it's
seven.
seven. Yeah.
So, right. And I do remember at the time he was sued for not paying child support by one of his, the mother of his children. I hate to say baby mamas. I don't like that. So, on the positive note, the positive note that I did find is that he does tap into his philanthropic side now and then with his Free Wishes Foundation, his charity. Now over to Wilson now, Mr. Russell Wilson. So dude has played quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, as I stated. Just recently he was traded to Denver this season. Russell does plenty of charity work. I'm not gonna run that down. Google him if you need to. He has a bachelor's in communications and I think a master's as well. in educational leadership and policy analysis. Shit, I ain't never heard of except in educational leadership, maybe. But I like I said, listen, dude has options if his NFL career falls to the wayside. He can do something. And he's a Christian man, but again, that's neither here nor there. So that depends on what you like, what you don't like. So on paper, people, I mean, come on. So here's my thing, though. Really, Sierra went through enough drama with Future, and of course, apparently, I'm sure with the other men in her life. Like she kissed enough frogs to finally land her prince. Okay, so why would she want to invite any more of that like nasty energy in? That would be self sabotage. So personally, when I'm looking for companionship or someone to spend the rest of my life with, I'm not gung ho on marriage, but that's a whole other conversation, y'all. I don't want drama. I want serenity. I want laughter. I want someone spirited. I want comfort. I want trust and honesty. So I want somewhere for my heart to call home. If it is accompanied by Russell's type of corniness and being goofballish, I'll take it. Because like why come for Sierra like that? Why does she have to be with Russell for money when it's obviously clear that she has her own shit? She's been on her own shit for a while. She's doing for herself. She has her clothing line. She has a whole bunch of other things that she does. She's always hosting what's it called? New Year's Eve rocking night. She's still doing her thing. She does not need validation. So what came to mind for me was I realized that some black men, and again, don't come for me, y'all, but some black men just can't be happy for black women and keep it moving without spewing sewage and talking out the side of their mouth or their ass and literally dragging us for the world to see. So, in the past few months, the topic of dragging black women as not good enough to date, being proud or not dating, being proud of not dating us, dating black women, having an issue with black women wearing their hair natural, and it goes on, has come up quite a bit. And from a black man's perspective, which is like really deplorable. As black women, we have enough to go through on the daily. Enough. So, just, I mean, for example, just watch the Supreme Court hearings for the newly appointed Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Katanji went through it. She went through it from the Republicans. And that will give you some insight, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, I mean, I'm agitated when I saw
You
this.
don't
It
say.
made
I never noticed.
child, that should make my blood boil. I'm like, really? Like, can we just like if my parents taught me if you have nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all, man. Keep your mouth shut. People don't hear, and those who don't hear must feel. So what do you think, LMG? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I, I hate the manosphere. I hate all of the toxic masculinity and pro patriarchy,
Yes.
misogynoir that comes out of that sector of black manhood. It's embarrassing. I don't find it productive. I'm like, who do y'all want to fuck? Who do y'all want to marry? Who do y'all want to raise your kids? Like, your hatred for women is so like, because we gays, we don't want you either. Like, I mean, I'm the I mean, it comes down to that on some level. Like, I'm joking, but I'm not joking. Like, the hatred of women is so deep and intense and in need of
Yeah.
therapy that you can't help but ask, like, you know, do you even like women? Do you like female energy? Do you like feminine energy? Like, or do you
Hmm.
only like the servitude of women and the fact that they can bear your children, and then end up raising them too? Like, I
Hmm.
don't, I don't understand. I don't get it. And I've even had to have this conversation with male family members who are heterosexual in my family and kind of check them about their misogynoir and some of the kind of beta male versus alpha male language that I'm just find gross. Like, I didn't like it as a child growing up, even though I had to listen to a lot of that, especially as a child of the 70s and 80s.
Right.
And as a way to be a man. Like the way to be a man was this way, and a lot of those lessons were toxic. Uh, so yeah, I mean, in terms of Russell's gorgeous. Also, like, I mean, you didn't even talk about the fact that the man is very handsome.
He's
My,
handsome. He's
like
he is
he's
handsome. I'm
he's
not gonna lie.
handsome. He's paid. He's educated. He's,
He's a
whether
gift
he's
that
a
keeps on giving,
whether
and the
he's a Christian
way,
or not is like whatever, but I mean, he has a moral compass, which is what you will want, and they
yes,
share values. Like,
yes,
she wanted somebody she could pray with, he prays with her. She wanted
hmm,
somebody that she could go to church with, they go to church together. She wanted somebody like she had her own Sierra's prayer that she didn't share
that's
with the
right.
world. Now, I could,
Hmm.
sometimes they can be a bit much with that. Like, I didn't necessarily need to hit your prayer, sis. um, nor did I need, he did some kind of, slightly manipulative stuff on the Ellen show recently about,
I saw
kind of
that.
putting her on and cornering her a little bit publicly about his
Yes,
desire to have more children,
more
which,
kids.
was a cringy moment. But, but overall, I find them adorable. I think that they're gorgeous to look at. I think they're very charming and endearing to watch.
Mhm.
And if people's happiness and joy inspires bitterness in you, then you might want to find out what that is, because those people are minding their business and living their lives. Why do you hate it so much? Like,
Right.
what is that? Like, is it jealousy? Is it envy? Is it insecurity because you aren't able to be that? I don't know what,
Hmm.
but whatever it
Hmm.
is, that seems personal. It doesn't seem like it's any of their business.
Hmm. Yep. I look at them sometimes in pictures. I see the way that they speak to each other, the way that they connect, the way they talk to each other. Like, it's you can see that they're in love. They are together. They are doing their thing. They're happy blissfully. Like, it's sometimes it's nauseating, but they're happy. They are 100% happy. Leave them alone. Let them be. So it was the same. I was in the same mind frame as well. I thought it was jealousy. I'm like, well, if you got to start talking out of your ass in order to receive any kind of attention, then yeah, that's an issue that you need to take on and dissect, my dear. I really don't know where that was coming from at all, and what was the reason for it too.
I mean, and for all things, there is a season. They might last 30 years. They might last 5. They might break up tomorrow. But
Who
in this
knows?
moment, they're
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 happy.
deliriously happy with each other, and that should be celebrated
Yep.
in a time where, so many people are lonely, so many people are alone, so many
Hmm.
people want and seek to find a life partner and fall short. So anytime we see a healthy looking, appearing, who knows what's behind closed doors, but appearing healthy couple, why is that not enough?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I hated it too. Thank you for that, hating it. um
Hit us.
so my hating it is as old as the hills, and I'm wondering why we still have to have this conversation in the year of our Lord 2022.
Mm.
Why are we still using the gay panic defense in 2022? So, according to ABC7 NY, Nathaniel Glover, 62, also
Oh
known
God.
as Kid Creole, was
Hmm.
found guilty of manslaughter in the first degree on Wednesday for a deadly stabbing of 55-year-old John Jolly in Midtown in 2017. Now, his attorney said that the stabbing happened as Glover was walking to his maintenance job, or Kid Creole was walking to his maintenance job in Midtown Manhattan shortly before midnight on August 1st, in 2017. Jolly asked him, "What's up?" Creole's lawyer went on to ask the jury, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is New York City. It's 12 o'clock at night. Who's saying what's up to you with good intentions?" Glover's lawyer, Scotty Celestine, told the jury and then said this: his fear for his life was reasonable.
Get the hell out of here.
Celestine also tried to argue that Jolly died from a dose from the sedative that was given to him at the hospital, not the stab wounds, not the multiple
Oh
stab
my
wounds.
God.
Of course, assistant, district attorney Mark Dahl, told the jury Glover confessed to the police that he didn't stab Jolly in self defense, but rather in anger because he thought Jolly was hitting on him. Now he's, and he said to the same jury, the defendant confessed to pulling out a kitchen knife. Now, the other thing is like, who's walking around with
You want
steak
a
knives? Like,
kitchen knife though?
who's walking around with steak knives?
Jesus.
Oh, Lord Jesus. And repeatedly thrusting it into the body of a stranger on the street, killing him. Was there anything that would prevent him from simply running away from Mr. Jolly? No. Now, for those who don't know who Kid Creole is a member of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, who are best known for their 1982 rap song, The Message. The hip hop pioneers formed in the late 1970s in the Bronx, recorded two albums, 1982's The Message from Sugar Hill Records and 1988's On the Strength for Elektra Records, and became the first rap act to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. This Kid Creole should not be confused with the band Kid Creole and the Coconuts. This is not the same guy.
Right.
and I certainly feel very bad for that Kid Creole because for the rest of his days, he's confused with a gay panic murderer. So
Right. That sucks.
poor Kid Creole and the Coconuts. They might want to. I don't know. What do you do with that? Like your brand is now selling from somebody else named Kid Creole.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, since his rap days, he's been living in the Bronx, working as a security guard and a handyman, which is totally respectable. And though he's had more than a few weapons possession charges over the years. Now, legendary status aside, there can be no more excuse for this murder, as it has been for just like it has been for the beatboxing and hip hop DJing pioneer African Bambaataa of the Zulu Nation for child sexual abuse, or R.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly or Bill Cosby. We have to stop making excuses for these trash ass cishet black men just because they once were something special for our community or made an artistic contribution to our creative lineage. Their specialness in one area shouldn't preclude us from staring directly in the face of their evil in another.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't even know if this homeless man was gay or not. He might have just been about to hit up Creole for some change or food. He was homeless, right? And just the mere perception of his queerness got him killed, you know. And now this rap legend is going to be behind bars potentially for up to the next 25 years, compounding the tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what kind of trash ass lawyer is still using a gay panic defense? I hadn't heard that since the days of the Jenny Jones talk show.
Damn.
So now for those who are uninitiated, because we recognize we got some babies who might listen to our show, Gen Zs, you millennials, who may not remember, Jones was a very popular talk show in the tabloid vein. Up in 1995, Jones taped an episode called Same Sex Secret Crushes, in which Scott Amador, a gay man, confessed to an associate, Jonathan Schmitz, that he had a crush on him. Schmitz appeared unconcerned. He laughed on the camera about the revelation in front of the audience. But 3 days after that taping, he killed Amador. And, for those of you who might have seen some clips about this in the HBO documentary Talk to Death or the Netflix docuseries Trial by Media, Schmitz's history of mental illness and alcohol and drug abuse came to light during the trial, in which Schmitz was later convicted of second-degree murder. So he had tried this gay panic defense too, and it did not get him off. He only just got out of jail or released on parole in August of 2017, right?
Oh.
So this defense didn't work in 1995. Why are we still using this defense in 2022?
Wow.
Now, as a legal defense strategy, gay panic has actually been outlawed in several countries. Unfortunately, in most of the US, outside of the entire West Coast, you can try that all the way from Oregon and Washington State, all the way down to the end of California, is outlawed there. Several New England states also outlawed this defense. However, several other states have also tried to, propose bills to ban this defense, including, shockingly enough, Texas and Florida.
Huh.
Though with the rise of Don't Say Gay, parental panic bills
Yeah.
happening. I doubt that those bills will have legs.
Hmm.
Trans panic has also been among the latest strategies to try to get hate mongering murderers off from everything from manslaughter to murder charges against those who have slain trans women victims.
This is
You
a
know,
thing.
this is
Like
a thing.
I
Oh, this,
can't even fathom. Like, wow. Okay.
in this day and age, not that it should not that it should have ever been acceptable, right? But in this day and age, certainly now, it should not be acceptable to murder someone because you perceive them as queer or trans and approaching you or liking you or flirting with you or otherwise making a romantic gesture toward you just because you're straight. You can
Hmm.
say you're straight, dismiss them as someone you're not interested in, and move on like a grown up.
Right.
Punching them, kicking them, maiming them, murdering them. Any violence against them should be off limits. Full stop.
The fact
Right?
that we have to mention that is just
I mean,
abhorrent.
because you have folks who be like, we know Black Twitter. You have some folks who like, well, this nigga come up to me like that, he
Oh
better be
yeah.
ready for me to throw hands. Like
Hmm.
that makes you what? It doesn't make you a big man. It doesn't make you like appear strong. To me, it makes you look incredibly insecure
Hmm.
and suspect for real. Like if you have to
Hmm.
go to that extreme to prove your heterosexuality, how fragile is your heterosexuality?
Yep.
You know,
Agreed. Agreed.
you
Holy
know.
shit.
But
I,
it's dangerous and it doesn't work. That's the other thing. It doesn't work.
and it's been
People
proven that it doesn't work, but they're
people
still
keep going.
using it.
People keep going to prison for it.
Oh my god.
This street code around this does not do anything to help you. It might help you maybe in prison with the other inmates who might be give you dap while y'all both sitting through time, but it's not doing anything out here with respectable people.
Hmm.
So that was my
Wow.
this is my hated it. Um, and also Kid Creole is an elder. He's like 60. Like he's gonna die in prison
He
probably.
sure will. I think so. Well, he'll be old and wretchedy when or wretchedy,
Well,
raggedy
87 years, up potentially 87 years old when he gets out.
when he gets out.
For
Yeah.
robbing this 55-year-old homeless man, a
Imagine,
homeless
man.
man of his life.
My God. There's no
Yeah.
way. I'm sorry. You're telling me I have more cojones than Kid Creole? Because I would be walking the road in Midtown like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. There were so many days back in New York where I would be riding the subway back home from running the road all night, going to events, and you running into everybody on the road. So say your piece and keep it moving. There's no way you need to grab your kitchen knife from your knapsack and kill somebody. Like, who does that? No.
Yeah. I mean,
Nope, nope, nope.
and I mean, luckily, I haven't been looking for it, so I haven't seen how this news just happened today. So I don't know what kind of the fallout has been, but
Mhm.
I'm probably gonna avoid Twitter.
Oh man,
Because I just remember how much African Bombada was defended, despite multiple sexual abuse allegations
still
made
is
against
defended.
him. And it's kind of like, yeah, it's great that he did all of these amazing things for the culture. He
Hmm.
also harmed some people potentially, and
Hmm.
that should also be confronted.
Yep, 100%. Keeps on being
So
swept under the rug, and then it takes one something else to happen, and then it's actually back in the limelight. I don't understand how nothing has been done at all as yet at all.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, AMC, this is going to be our shortest show, which
I
is funny because given
know.
how long we've been talking, right? This is going to be our shortest show because y'all are trife. Yes, listeners, you're trife
With a capital T.
with a
With a
capital
capital
T.
T.
You won't feed us the nourishment of good what the fuck and salacious stories. We have asked you several times. We've given you the email address is the Gibson Gazette at
Mhm.
gmail.com. You know my
Mhm.
last name is spelled GIP. So if you've been sending it to GIB, that's on you. It's all over
Mhm.
everything we send out.
Listen.
GIP, the Gibson Gazette. So we'll have to beg and wait for you to send us. We ain't giving up on this segment because we love this segment. This was fun for us.
I loved it
So
too. But
y'all lucky I didn't pull up another negative story like I did last time about them badass kids. But we
listen,
gonna wait for you this time. We gonna wait.
I refuse to beg because you see all of y'all nasty little watchy words that were in LMG's inbox about I want to see Marlon's sex video and I want to see Marlon's dick. I need to hear from y'all because you guys are the ones that are sitting on them juicy ass stories. So come with it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they definitely were like, yeah, for all you freaks who was trying to get the Marlins dick shot, y'all could go ahead and tell
Mhm.
me y'all freaky stories because clearly there's some there. All
Cue
right.
freakily.
If you have anything else for our audience, AMC,
No, sir. I'm just gonna sip on my Perrier and wait for these salacious stories to come in. I want y'all to have a good run, and we will hear y'all soon. Have a good night, y'all.
this is the Gibson Gazette signing off as we wonder what are the stories you're telling the world? Better still, what are the stories you're telling yourselves? Good evening.